Ladies and gentlemen, it is Jerusalem Day. So instead of playing our normal intro, I'm going to play a little clip from a show we produced a couple of years ago. Take a look at this.
June 7, 1967, Israel was fighting a war of survival against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. My brigade, the 55th paratroopers, were transported to Jerusalem to capture the old city from the Jordanians who had occupied it since 1948. We made our way to the Lion's Gate, and then we entered. The bus, I didn't see when they bombed it, but he was standing here. And they were afraid that there is someone inside, someone with a gun. It was empty. They shot it from down there, and it will start burning. And it kept burning until we passed over here. We passed through the smoke, through the black smoke, big black smoke from the bus, and we passed through it.
מתחת לשער האריות, שער מקימפול, כנראה מההפגזות שהיו כאן. אנחנו הולכים ומעמיקים לתוך העיר העתיקה. הר הבית בידינו, כאן תמיד, הר הבית בידינו.
Then I went to some house. I said, I want to call my parents. Parents lives here in Jerusalem. And I called my father and I said, Father, we have the Kotel.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, today is Jerusalem Day, so that means 56 years ago, Israel retook the old city of Jerusalem and retook the Temple Mount, hopefully for all of eternity, never to be lost again, God willing. That clip I just played for you is from a show we produced several years back, a multi-season show with tons of episodes exactly like that, and a lot of those are here on the channel if you want to go back and look for them. Incredible content tucked in that many of you maybe have never seen because it's from the earlier days of our channel. That episode, I'm going to put the rest of that in the description below if you want to check it out. If you stick around, I might put one more clip, a really powerful clip, later on in the show here below. I'm going to talk about Jerusalem and some of what's going on in Jerusalem today, as well as some of the history in just here a second. But if you like what's coming out of this channel, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button below this video. It's a win-win. It helps us grow, but it also help connect you to the land and people of Israel from a very personal, boots on the ground kind of perspective. So don't hesitate to do that. I know we tell you that a lot, but why haven't you done it yet? Okay. The Temple Mount is in our hands. Famous quote from the paratrooper commander who took the Temple Mount. He radioed over the radio, "The Temple Mount is in our hands, Har Bayit B'Yadenu." It was the quote that went around the world. I don't know if he quite grasped the significance of it at the time. Just kind of remember, though, I think it's really cool to we live today with Jerusalem being in Jewish hands, and for us, it's very easy to take it for granted. But if you put yourself, kind of take a little bit of a trip down memory lane, we remember that Abraham, when God gave Abraham the command to sacrifice Isaac, God told Abraham to go to the mountains of Moriah to sacrifice Abraham. Mount Moriah is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And so Abraham took Isaac to Mount Moriah, up to the top of the mountain, in an act of obedience to God, of ultimate obedience to God. He started to sacrifice Isaac. Remember the story. God stopped him, provided a ram, and supplemented Isaac for the ram. And we fast forward to David. There was a plague because of one of David's sins, a plague eating thousands of people, killing thousands of people in Jerusalem. David, he goes over to a threshing floor. He buys it. He buys the deed to the Temple Mount. He builds an altar, and God heard his prayer and stopped the plague. And David at that time knew that this would be the place where God would want his permanent house. Tabernacle is a tent. Move that permanent house to the Temple Mount to create it as a place where God's presence could dwell here on earth, where people could come and worship God in a physical and tangible way. Solomon, David's son, built that temple. He dedicated it, and the glory of God fell to such an extreme that the priest could not minister in the temple because the glory filled the temple to such an extreme and radiated out from there. And God told Solomon in a dream, he said, My eyes and my heart will be on this place, on this Temple Mount, forever. His eyes and his heart will be there forever. Fast forward, the Jewish people had a temple there for centuries, and in 70 AD, the Romans destroyed that temple and sent the Jewish people into exile. And since then, there has always, for the most part, almost always been a Jewish presence in Jerusalem from generation to generation, but there's not been complete sovereignty over the Temple Mount and over the old city of Jerusalem until 1967, when Israel took it back in a war of self-defense from an occupying Jordanian force. They took it back. Young paratroopers stormed into Jerusalem, stormed up to the Temple Mount, and flew an Israeli flag and said, Harabait B'Yadenu, the Temple Mount is in our hands once again. And today, 56 years later, we are celebrating that reconquering. Although sadly, even though Israel officially reconquered the Temple Mount, even though the soldiers took it, they flew the flag, it's under Israeli sovereignty. Today, the Temple Mount is not under full Israeli sovereignty. Israel, for whatever reason, for political reasons, under a secular Jewish government, they handed the keys to the Temple Mount back to Jordan, back to Jordanian religious police. And since 1967, it's been very difficult for non-Muslims to express any type of worship in God's house, in the place of God's house on the Temple Mount. Non-Muslims cannot pray. They cannot move their lips. They cannot bow down. They cannot bring any Bibles or prayer books up on the Temple Mount. They can only wear certain things. They can't bring Israeli flags or any type of national symbols, including Star of David or any of that type of thing up on the Temple Mount. You can only go up for certain hours out of the day. You can only go certain places on the Temple Mount. You can only go up certain days of the week, certain days of the year. It's extremely, extremely oppressive for the place of God's house that God gave authority to the Jewish people to build his house on the Temple Mount, for that to be the reality, and for Israel to hand it back to the hands of the Muslims back shortly after the war in 1967, and for the Muslims to hold this tight reign of control over the Temple Mount today, frankly, is really maddening. And there's Jews all over the world continue to pray for full freedom, full prayer on the Temple Mount. And I encourage you, as if you're a Christian watching the show or a non-Jew, to also add your voice, lend your voice, not only to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but also to pray for freedom of worship on the Temple Mount, freedom of prayer on the Temple Mount for non-Muslims there. Once again, none of us know exactly how things might play out, hoping one day that maybe God will rebuild his house on the Temple Mount, that he will allow that to happen. We have no idea, how that will play out with the current political situation. But the first step that we can take, right here, right now, is to pray for freedom of worship, is to pray for Jews and Christians and non-Muslims, anyone that wants to be able to come on the Temple Mount, to bow down, to put their face on the floor, and to pray to the one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the fact that that's not allowed today is really maddening. It's really, really, really difficult. We're going to get into a little bit more about that in just a second. But first, Israel 365 has written a book that every Bible believer should own in their home. We already ordered our copy and are excited to tell you about it today. 75 Hebrew words you need to understand the Bible by our friends and partners at Israel 365 is a beautifully crafted book that explains, translates, and unlocks the hidden meanings of 75 core Hebrew words. Each word is accompanied by an in-depth essay exploring its significance, connections to related Hebrew words, and the secrets of only accessible through the original language, featuring translations and transliterated verses in their proper biblical context. Stunning visuals and elegant design, this exceptional book is a valuable resource for Bible study, a captivating conversation starter, and an ideal gift for loved ones. Use our link in the description below to pre-order your copy today. Don't miss this opportunity. Get your copy today at a special discounted pre-order price. The book will be shipping in June 2023, so now is the perfect time to get your copy and take the first step toward unlocking the secrets of the Hebrew Bible. Click the link in the description below to pre-order today. So even though the Temple Mount is not fully free under Jewish hands, Israel has been taking steps to open up some level of freedom. It's been a tradition in Jerusalem for some time now that Zionist Jews, on Jerusalem Day will get together and do a march, a parade through the old city of Jerusalem, culminating at the Western Wall, carrying flags and declaring sovereignty over the old city of Jerusalem. And every year, as can be predicted, there's a giant, massive fight over this as sure you could very well predict at this point. There are a lot of people who take issue at Jews showing sovereignty in Judea, in Jerusalem, their ancient capital, and that exception to this year is no exception. There has been a massive scuffle, but kudos to the Israeli government for moving forward and allowing this Flag Day parade to go forward in all its glory. Tens of thousands of Jews showed up for this year. It was a really, really cool event that happened last night. I think they said over 10,000 Jews showed up. Not exactly sure that number, but they culminated at the Temple Mount. Show you a couple clips here. Really cool stuff. Also, hundreds and hundreds of Jews also went up on the Temple Mount for the same reasons, to worship God as best they can under the tight restrictions and to declare sovereignty. And it was actually really cool. You can see from this video right here that they actually brought flags, Jewish flags, up on the Temple Mount. And for some reason, security actually allowed it. This is a huge, huge step. I've never seen this before in all the times that I've been up on the Temple Mount. Never seen this allowed before, and actually saying the Hot Tikva. This is from the Jerusalem Post. They say, Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount raised the Israeli flag while singing Hot Tikva as over 1,000 Jews visited the complex on Jerusalem on Thursday. A number of visitors and MKs visited the Temple Mount on Thursday, including Negev and Galilee National Resilience Minister Yitzhak Wasserloff and Likud MK Dan Aluz, Ariel Kalner, and Amit Halavi. The Temple Mount, quote, the Temple Mount is the holiest place for the Jewish people. This is from Aluz. It's not my first time there, and I'm excited to go up on the Mount. It's inconceivable to accept a claim as if the presence of Jews in a certain place, especially in the holiest place for the people of Israel, is an extreme act. As someone who immigrated to Israel from abroad, to the state of the Jews out of deep Zionism, I cannot accept an argument that says that the very presence of the Jews in a certain place is provocation. This is unacceptable. I intend to ask God in this holy place to work for the unity of Jerusalem and for the prosperity of the state of Israel in the face of many challenges. So, amen to that. Again, I encourage you today, as David said, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for God to bring peace inside the borders of Israel. Pray for freedom of worship on the Temple Mount once again. Thank God for these little steps that are being taken, that we see a little bit more each year. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Happy Jerusalem Day. I'm going to leave you with one more clip from the show with Shlomo Kasher that we started at the beginning. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.
So what's the feeling you feel when you touch the wall?
I'll tell you why. Because I did the law many times. I changed something in my feeling because, as I told you, I realized by the years that those are only memory. It's not the main thing we want. The main thing is up there. That is memory. Here we can pray for that. It's the nearest place to there, but it's not it. It's not it.